Hello and a very good evening to you. Welcome along to our first public engagement event to share with you details about a proposal that the Hardwicke House Group GP practice will be outlining in a bit more detail for you this evening. My name's Simon Morgan. I'm Associate Director of Communications for the 3 CCGs across Suffolk and North East Essex. Hosting your event for you this evening. It's the first of 2 events that we're doing, one this month, one next month. I'm going to introduce you to the panel in just a second. Just a quick note of housekeeping that we're going to follow this evening. You'll be hearing a presentation from Stuart Clark from Apollo very shortly. If you have any questions or issues that you'd like to raise with the panel this evening, please write them in the Q&A live event chat link, which is on the right hand side of your page. We will get around to asking those questions that you've posted in the chat once the presentation and once the panel discussion takes place. So we'll do that very shortly. We're looking to conclude this public engagement exercise probably around 6:30, 6:45 time, no later than 6:45. And we also hope to have a recording of this available, which we'll post onto our websites as well. So lots there for you to have. So let me now introduce you to our panel this evening. Delighted to introduce to you first of all, Dr. Jamie Gilmore. Jamie, would you like to introduce yourself, please? Jamie.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm one of the partners at Hardwicke House. I've been a partner there for, this is my, I think, 10th year. Our conversations about trying to get new premises have been ongoing for all of that time and longer. And we're very pleased and excited to be talking about it tonight. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Jamie. Stuart Fountain.
Good evening. Yes, thank you for attending this event. My name's Stuart Fountain. I'm the practice manager for the Hardwicke House Group practice and very privileged to look after the Affairs Board of Partnership and for our patients.
Thank you, Stuart. Stuart Clark.
Good evening, everybody. So yes, I'm Stuart Clark. I work for Assura PLC, actually, not Apollo, and I'm working alongside, or have been working alongside the Hardwicke House Group practice for quite some time, with a view to helping them relocate to new surgery premises. So essentially, my role in the project is that I'm a development manager, and I'm managing the development process on behalf of the team.
Thank you, Stuart. And Eric Catton. Eric, I think you might be on mute.
Yeah.
There we go. Would you like to introduce
sorry about that. Yes, it's delayed action. Good evening. My name is Eric Catton. Yeah, I'm a chair of the Patient Partnership Group, which does include Hardwicke House Group Practice and Siam Surgery. We merged earlier this year, and we represent the patients of the 2 practices. We are an independent group of patients that work with the surgeries, who have been very, very supportive to us over the years in helping solve patient issues, reports that we get of patients that have good things to say, not so good things to say, and we work with Stuart and Jamie to find solutions and also make sure we cover what the patients are wanting to know about the practice and wanting to find out about the treatments that are available. The objective is to make sure that as a patient practice partnership, we work with the patients and become champions for them. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Eric, and we'll hear from Erica a bit later on, I'm sure. So without further ado, let's get into the main presentation for this evening, and I'd like to hand over to Stuart Clark, the Development Manager at Assura, to take us through his slides. So Stuart, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Simon. So here's the first slide. So it just kind of explains a little bit about, the background to the project and, why we are seeking to develop new premises. So the project is based upon the consolidation of 3 surgery sites. So Hardwicke House Group Practice, they currently operate 5 sites. Cornard Surgery, Hardwicke House and Meadow Lane, and then 2 outlying sites at Bures and Clare. So the proposals will entail the proposed closure of Hardwicke House, Meadow Lane and Cornard, and for those 3 surgeries to consolidate into the new site. So the reason why we're doing it is the surgeries are very old, they're no longer fit for purpose, and they are not suitable for modern health provision. I think it's quite a sort of difficult situation for the practice, because they are literally they do lack capacity, and that is places limitations on the practice in terms of adopting to new changes in services. So that's why we're looking to deliver new premises for them. This is not new, the project, as Jamie pointed out. I mean, we've been working on the project for a number of years, and I think Hardwicke House were first highlighted as in need of new premises way back in 2003, and it sort of gives you some idea of how long we've been sort of working on the project. The development brief is to deliver a 1,900 square metre facility, which we're planning on doing, which will include an in-house pharmacy, and also to have scope for future expansion. I think it's really important that future expansion point, because what we're all keen to avoid is the same situation as what the practice finds themselves in right at this moment in time, i.e. they haven't got any capacity. The new building, there's obviously an emphasis towards clinical provision, so the building will contain a lot more rooms, different types of rooms, and there's also an element of educational content within there and group meeting spaces. The building is going to be sustainable. We have to deliver a sustainable building. That's part of the NHS approvals. So we're aiming to deliver a BREEAM excellent building, and I'll touch upon that in a bit as we go through the slides. I think it's important to point out that the proposals, they are supported by NHS England and West Suffolk CCG. However, the funding availability for this project is time limited, so that's why we've taken the opportunity to submit a planning application sooner rather than later, because ultimately what we're trying to do is achieve the final approvals prior to the end of the year, and currently we are on track with that. So I think also it's important to touch upon site options. So during the consultation process, we met a lot of the general public, and they all asked lots of interesting questions, and quite a few of those questions related to why Station Road, have we not looked at other sites? And I just really want to touch upon some of the sites that we have explored prior to ending up with focus on our efforts on Station Road. So we've looked at Bellevue, which is quite close to Station Road. We've looked at that a couple of times. I think the council were keen to explore other options, which is absolutely fine. We looked at the former tax office. Unfortunately, that wasn't large enough to accommodate the building of what on the scale of what is proposed. We looked at the former Uplands middle school. Again, the reason why we didn't sort of pursue that one is because accessibility. I think in the context of the town centre, we didn't feel it was particularly accessible, or certainly less accessible than perhaps Station Road. We've looked at the Chestnuts, which is the site towards Great Cornard, and whilst that was quite an attractive site in principle, actually once we got into the detail of the site, we felt it wasn't really suitable for the medical centre, just for a number of reasons in terms of site topography, biodiversity, things like that. It just wasn't possible to deliver a building on that site. We've looked at Francis Road, which is where the bus station is located, and I think the council were keen to retain that as a strategic site. We looked at St Leonard's Hospital and the Walnut Tree Hospital, but I think the NHS at that time were quite keen to sort of pursue other options in terms of future uses for those sites, and we've also looked at Churchfield, which is where the current community health centre is located, and the reason why we haven't pursued that, because I think that's a kind of natural place for the building to go. However, we felt that that was inaccessible for patients, and we felt that focusing our attentions in the town centre would be better, you know, particularly from an accessibility viewpoint. So that's why we ended up at Station Road. So next slide. So this is a slide of the Station Road site, so it sort of provides a context of the site that we're purchasing in relation to the surrounding buildings. So so we're going to be located next to the existing Waitrose store on what is currently used as a lorry park, and you'll see on the right, the image on the right hand side, you'll see an area which is outlined in red, and essentially that's the parcel of land which we are purchasing from Baber District Council. During the consultation process, we had quite a few questions about, you know, the design and why is it a funny shaped building. Well, there's a very good reason for that, in that the site is actually quite constrained. There's a main sewer and pumping station which kind of runs between the building and the Valley Walk. We also have to give consideration to the Waitrose store next door, where basically they have rights for them to access the rear, or the lorry park essentially, to gain access to their service depot at the back of the store. But you know, we also feel that, you know, it's a great site, you know, so you know, it's got great accessibility to public transport hubs. So we've got the train station, which I suppose is less relevant in terms of, you know, patients accessing the site, but also we've got the bus station, which is probably about 300-400 meters walk from the site. It's also very close to the town centre, and you know, there are currently a good number of parking spaces. So that's some of the benefits of the site. This again, just reinforcing the point around what we're actually buying from Baber Council. So I think there's a lot of questions raised about, you know, what that is. So here, this slide demonstrates it perfectly. One thing I'd just like to add, yeah, so the site boundary does sort of go up to the essentially the boundary line with which sort of separates the lorry park from the Valley Walk. And I think I've seen one or two comments in relation to the planning application at the moment where the general public feel that we're basically taking the Valley Walk away. That is not correct. So it's really important to sort of highlight this, that actually the Valley Walk will be retained, as will the existing access from the Valley Walk into the car park. So there are absolutely no changes there in terms of, you know, what you've got there at the moment. But this just does highlight, you know, what we're buying. I also just want to explain the situation with parking a little bit as well, if that's okay. So you know, again, through the consultation process, we are very much aware that there are sort of concerns about parking numbers in Sudbury, and you know, there are a lot of questions as to whether, you know, the new building would allow patients to park free, because obviously, you know, there is a sort of parking policy in place within the Baber district. So you'll see there that we've got the building in the middle there, and to the rear of the building there's going to be a number of parking spaces created. So I think there's going to be 23 off the top of my head, 23 to the rear of the building, and at the front of the building there's going to be 40 spaces. Now those 40 spaces, they are existing car parking spaces, so you know, just to be clear about that. However, as part of the agreement, whilst technically we own those spaces, what we've done is we've actually come to an arrangement with Bayber District Council at the request of Bayber District Council to ensure that the general public can use those car parking spaces outside of normal surgery hours, and in which case, you know, that will be the case. So, you know, sort of typically on a market day on a Saturday, we know that there are pressures in terms of parking numbers, so those spaces at the front will revert to use by the general public. But essentially during normal surgery hours, what we will do will be managing those spaces through an automated car parking system. So essentially, if you wish to park in those spaces, patients and visitors, what will happen is you'll have to go into the surgery, you'll have to enter in your registration plate details, and that will enable you to park there free of charge. So this is the building. These are the floor plans. So just sort of quickly, just to kind of explain what we have planned. So essentially down in this is the ground floor. So we have a pharmacy here on the left-hand side of the building. As you come in directly into the building, we have a waiting area, and then reception area, interview room, and then we have quite a few clinical rooms down on the ground floor. What we've done with the design is we've tried to create kind of like a separate suite, if you like. So essentially from this point downwards, this is going to be basically, it's a self-contained suite. So if the practice wish to operate that part of the building outside of surgery hours, they can do that without having to open up the entire building. I think the other key point about that space as well, it will have its own entrance, but also it also serves a purpose in terms of COVID and any sort of infectious diseases, that actually you could separate off that part of the building, and it's just got sort of enhanced infection control measures. So it does serve a number of purposes. We also go to onto the first floor, and there's a number of clinical rooms up on the first floor, and also there are some public spaces up on the top floor on the second floor. So we have sort of group meeting spaces up there, seminar suite, things like that, and we feel it's a great place to position those particular rooms, because they'll have fantastic views of the local area, including, you know, Fry's Meadow and things like that. And then again at the top of the on the top floor, there will be the vast majority of the admin spaces and support spaces. So here are some of the perspective views of what the building will look like. What we've tried to do is we've tried to progress a modern design, because we think it's a reflection of, you know, a modern healthcare service. What we also try to do is we try to, you know, take reference from local architecture where we can, and we've chosen to do that through using local materials. So it's not by chance that we're using kind of like a sandy type buff brick, because what we're trying to do is try to sort of blend ourselves in with the neighbouring Waitrose building and also the Kingfisher Leisure Centre. We feel that, you know, potentially that might be viewed as a little bit sort of dull. So what we've also tried to do is we've tried to use brick in a sort of certain fashion, which again we're sort of taking reference from Gainsborough House, where they've used a kind of brick quite cleverly. They've sort of progressed a brick weave there, and whilst it perhaps a brick weave is not particularly suitable for this building, we have tried to use brick in different forms to try and sort of give the facade some texture. We're also looking to include timber, and that's because we like to use natural materials, but also again we feel it kind of softens the presence of the building. I think that's sort of particularly relevant in relation to, you know, the impact of the building on perhaps some of the more sensitive viewscapes, i.e. The Friars Meadow. So what we're trying to do is blend the building in with the tree line, so as so it doesn't sort of have such a sort of impact on that view. And at the bottom you can see various sort of images, precedent images of where these methods have been used, we feel sort of quite successfully in the past. So here are the elevations, and basically I've included the elevations really just to kind of give the building some sort of context, particularly in relation to neighbouring buildings. So it's really just to kind of highlight the scale of the building compared to Waitrose and Kingfisher at the Kingfisher Leisure Centre. So hopefully what we're trying to demonstrate here is that it's kind of relevant and similar to the existing scale of the buildings that are currently present there. And generally speaking, this is the current sort of timelines for the project, and it's all subject to, and everybody will be aware that we have submitted a planning application for the project. So the planning application was lodged actually in early September, not August as planned. A little bit late on that, but essentially what we're trying to do is to secure planning consent by November, December time, and what that then enables us to do is to progress the final approvals process with the NHS, and subject to securing planning, which is not a foregone conclusion, or the final business case approvals. We hope to be in a position to start construction roughly around April, May time next year, and we think it's going to take 12-13 months or so to deliver the building. So rough time scales, but we'd like to think certainly by May, June 2023 that the building will be fully operational.
Thank you very much indeed, Stuart. Really comprehensive presentation there. So that's the proposal that's being presented to the group this evening. We do have a number of questions that are coming in through the Q&A chat. Don't forget, if you have a question, please do use the Q&A chat, type the question in, and we'll come to it very, very shortly indeed. Just following on from Stuart's presentation, a couple of follow-up questions, if I may. Now, people may be lost or maybe sort of concerned about the possible loss of a physical building in Great Cornard. What would be your message to them, panel? Perhaps I could start by putting that to Stuart Clark. Stuart.
Yeah, it's a valid concern. During the consultation process, we met a number of local individuals, and some of them were Cornard residents, and they were concerned about losing, their local GP surgery. And I guess 2 points to make really is firstly, if you do indeed lose your surgery, it doesn't mean to say that you're going to lose your GP service, and I think that's really important to highlight, actually, that you'll still continue a fantastic level of service by the practice. And also another point to make is, Cornard, in relation to the new site, it's close. It's less than 1.5 miles away. It's accessible. It's got a good bus service. I think 2 to 3 buses per hour, 25 buses each day either way. And that's why we've sort of decided to pursue the site at Station Road, because we do genuinely feel it's in a very accessible location. So I do accept that it's a valid concern, but as I say, we hope the new building will actually be a big improvement on the facility they've got there at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Stu. Any other panel member like to come in at all with any additional comments? Okay, thank you. Concerns also about the lorry park. I think you touched on this in the main presentation there, Stuart, and what might happen to lorry drivers who currently use the park in their lorries. What would your message be? What's the position as far as the practice is concerned in relation to this? Bearing in mind also that that it may well be a matter for the council to consider as well. What would your response be to that?
Absolutely. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there, Simon. It really is a council matter. So essentially, from our perspective, all that we're doing is we're buying a parcel of land from Baber District Council. So it doesn't mean to say that we're actually party to the future plans of, you know, the lorry park or anything really. So you know, certainly my message to those listening would be, you know, if they have any concerns about you know, the provision of a lorry park, then they should really take that up with their local council and their local councillors. It was actually a very sort of common question during the consultation process, and unfortunately we haven't got the answer to that.
Thank you very much. Any other panel member like to come in at all? We will have one or two questions about the clinical benefits of the proposal as well. Another question stroke concern has been around the local environment, the green space. There's a lot of nice green space around the Waitrose supermarkets. You've got the Valley Walks, fields beyond that as well in Sudbury. What impact might this proposal have on the Valley Walk and the surrounding area, would you suggest? Stuart,
yeah, I mean, I think it was actually it was a point raised by the planners at Baber District Council, and that in part is why we've sort of gone down the route of selecting those sort of palette and materials, and it's really to sort of soften the impact of the building in the context and viewscape of the Friars Meadow area. You know, we know it's a well-used area, and what we don't want to do is, you know, create a sort of an eyesore which sort of spoils the enjoyment for the local community. So I think that's why we sort of gone down a particular route in terms of design. In terms of the actual use of facilities such as the Valley Walk, and again, I can't stress this enough, we've absolutely no intentions to you know, block that off or change that or anything. It's a public right of way, and you know, if anything, we kind of welcome the continued use of that. And yeah, just to kind of reassure the community.
Thank you very much. Can I turn to Jamie Gilmore and perhaps also Stuart Fountain as well, just to perhaps spell out in maybe a brief detail, if I may, the clinical benefits of having this new building if it was to go ahead. What would you suggest are the clinical benefits, or indeed the benefits to patients in the area as well? Jamie first, please.
Our limitations at present are the size of our buildings with the sort of service we aspire to provide. We would hope to have more space, to have more clinicians, more nurses, availability of more services from these buildings, bring back into the town centre some of the things that have been taken away in recent years, be able to provide educational space for young doctors and nurses. We've got it's a changing playing field at the moment in a lot of initiatives coming into primary care. The involvement of paramedics, pharmacists, social prescribers within our team, and they all need space. And the reality of that is, presently some of our clinicians work from home on occasion to allow these other services space. And that really isn't ideal, because that then limits to an extent our availability to deal with the unexpected, which often happens. Resource situations in the practice, on the street, we actually need the clinicians to be on site. So it allows us to modernise, be in fresh buildings which are future-proof for technology and space, allows us to provide additional services, and actually it's above all of that as well. It's a sign of the willingness of the current team to commit to Sudbury for another 25-year lease. These come in 25-year cycles. We love working in Sudbury. We feel we offer a really strong service. We want that to continue and only get better. Thanks.
Thanks. Thanks very much indeed, Jamie. Stuart, Fountain, is there anything else you'd like to add at all from your perspective?
Really, I can just echo what Jamie has said. You know, we're very keen to enhance the access for our patients and to bring services into Sudbury and additional clinical and support services. You know, we are desperate to recruit additional pharmacists, physios, paramedics, etc. We have extreme problems in housing them at the moment, so it restricts our capability. We also want to recruit more nurses, have more GP availability, etc., etc. We just have nowhere to operate from. And, you know, the buildings are very old, they're very difficult to maintain, and they are also very constricted in terms of size. Some of the rooms that we use are essentially, to put it bluntly, broom cupboards that we make do with, which really shouldn't be clinical rooms in an ideal environment. So it restricts access to patients if they need to use the beds or need screening in a proper way, etc. So, you know, this will really enhance our capability to lift the service to the levels that the patient should expect and we wish to deliver.
Thanks very much indeed, Stuart. So those are the benefits that the proposal, if it went ahead, would bring to local people in the area. One question perhaps to Eric Catton, if I may, who is the chair of the PPG there in the at the Hardwicke House. Eric, just outline, please, the involvement that your group has had with the proposal so far. We're having a bit of difficulty there with the mute button by the looks of it. Perhaps we'll come back to you, Eric. I think you're live. Go on. There we go. Yep. I think you're able to talk there, Eric.
You hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Good. Sorry about that. Yes, it's just gone there. Certainly that's one of the things I failed to mention earlier, is that as a PPG, we have been very privileged to be invited in to the very early stages of the project. We stood on the market square with Stuart and Jamie, asking the public what their opinions were and making notes of those, so that we could actually feel that we could represent them properly, that we are there to represent the patients as this new project will be a benefit for them, but where they see negativeness in it, then we challenge Stuart and Jamie as to say, how do we solve that for the patients? It certainly is a process that has true involvement with the PPG, and we are able to bring to it all the issues that our patients have and are able to answer those directly from Stuart, the developer, and from Hardwicke House. And when patients, as I say, we are a joint partnership with Siam, they have a purpose-built premises that is obvious the benefits of, which is sadly not the case we have with Hardwicke House. And we can only see benefits for that because it allows the patients the access and the treatments that they deserve and have a right to, basically.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Eric. Good to get the patient's perspective, of course. We've got a number of questions that have appeared now in the live chat. Let me go through some of these. Some of them are statements as well, but thank you to people who have posted in the chat this evening. The first question, please, is why was Bellevue House turned down when Hardwicke House newsletter clearly stated this was ideal? The question is, why was Bellevue House turned down as an option when Hardwicke House's newsletter clearly stated that this was ideal? Who might be able to pick that up, please, from the panel? Stuart Clark, is that something you might be able to answer at all, please?
Yeah, sure. I think about 5 years ago now, Baby District Council, they actively marketed Bellevue, and you know, there was no denying that we were interested at the time. We felt we put a really strong bid forward, but we were unsuccessful. So you know, not wishing to dwell on that, you know, we've moved on, and I think actually we've moved actually to a better location, if I'm being perfectly honest. So absolutely, you know, we wish everybody well with Bellevue, and we know that's now subject to a separate development proposal, and we wish them all the very best with it.
Thanks, Stuart. Anybody else like to come in at all with any other additional information? Okay, we'll move. Oh, Jamie.
I'm just unmuting myself. Hang on.
Yep, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Just to reiterate what Stuart said, we put an absolutely enormous, tremendous effort into presenting a case of Bellevue. At the time, it was clearly the most appropriate place we had found. This is 5-6 years ago, and we still don't know. There's not the feedback to us as to why we were unsuccessful or why our hotel development was the preferred bidder at that time. Clearly, that's not what's happening now. But as Stuart says, we did give it a really good go and spent many months, if not 2 years, on the project, and it wasn't without its emotional side. We were very disappointed, but we had to move on. We didn't drop the project. We looked at 4 or 5, 6 sites after that in the list that Stuart gave us earlier, and then thankfully in further negotiations with Baber, the present site came along. I'm very thankful for it.
Can I just add, Jamie and Simon, I think it's really important actually what Jamie's just mentioned there. Actually, Baber have been fantastic. They've been really helpful. You know, we were, you know, really disappointed not to secure Bellevue, but, you know, a number of individuals within the council have gone out of their way to try and help us, and we are genuinely grateful for that. So, you know, I think Bellevue is a real sort of hot topic locally. But, you know, I think, you know, we've sort of gone from quite a sort of negative situation to quite a positive situation. So I think, you know, we'd really like to focus on the benefits of, you know, Station Road.
Thanks very much indeed, Stuart and Jamie. That's very comprehensive there. Let's go back to the questions now. We've got a number of comments as well. I'll come on to the comments in just a second. There's a couple of questions, though, a couple of comments relating to 40 spaces, and one particular question which asks, why have you not been upfront about the 40 spaces in your consultation? Who would like to answer that particular question that's come in, please?
I'm very happy to answer that. So I think, you know, during the consultation process, anybody who I've spoken to, I've been very clear that, you know, the building, we will provide 63 car parking spaces, sorry, 62 car parking spaces, and 40 of those will be located at the front of the building. You know, you can look at the plans and it's very clear that what we are doing is buying existing car parking spaces. And, you know, we've been very open about that. I don't think we've, you know, ever tried to sort of, you know, pull the wool over anybody's eyes in that respect. So yeah, I think we've been very clear, super clear in relation to what we've conveyed to the public.
Thank you, Stuart. Any other comments at all from panel members? No? Good, okay. A couple of comments here. What about crowding services in a tight area of town? Already busy is not good for our town. Is one particular comment. I don't know whether anybody wants to come in and respond to that particular issue at all. Crowding services in a tight area of town, already busy, is not good for our town. And I think that's probably something that this engagement wants to hear from people. They want to hear, you know, exactly what people's thoughts are about that. So Stuart, do you want to come in about that at all, please? As
in why Station Road, and it's. You know, we feel actually it's a really good part of town because actually it's in an accessible location, and that's absolutely key. So yeah, that's our sort of response to that.
Okay, thank you. Jamie, did you want to come in as well?
I think that corner of town generally is a corner that will be developed in a number of different ways over the next few years. The shopping centre corner is, I believe, up for development. I think there will be a need to restructure and rethink some of the transport links around there. But again, and that will come down the line, and that we haven't been privy to these conversations.
Thanks, Jamie. Two comments have come in about the design of the proposed building, and I'll read one of the two comments out. The scale of the design does not fit in with the roofline of Waitrose building and impacts on the railway walk. What would your response be to that particular comment there? So the scale of the design does not fit in with the roofline of the Waitrose building and impacts on the railway walk.
Well, I think in terms of the scale of the building, I think it's comparable to Waitrose. I do, and actually, I think I'm correct in saying that Kingfisher Leisure Centre is actually taller than the building, the new surgery. So, yeah. So, and in terms of impacting on the Valley Walk and Friars Meadow, we are aware of that. We are proposing to retain all the trees along that particular boundary, and as I said earlier, we've been really careful with the sort of choice of palette of materials that we're using on the building elevations, and that's primarily to sort of lessen the impact on those views.
Thank you, Stuart. Any other comments from any other panel member at all?
I think we.
Sorry.
Sorry, Eric.
Please do, Eric.
We have spent a lot of time considering the design and the impact and the environment. We think we have done an appropriate design to fit in a functional building, making it modern to do its job and try to fit it in with the surrounding as best we can. Clearly, it may never be the perfect solution, but we have spent a huge amount of time discussing it, going through designs, consulting with local history groups, information groups to try and source the style and the type of brick, and we have actually put a lot of due diligence into trying to make it an appealing and functional building. And I'm using the word, I'm including myself in that, but really it is Stuart and his team that have spent a lot of time doing it.
Thank you, Jamie. Eric, did you want to come in there?
Yes, if I may, but I should have added about the positioning of it. As a Hardwicke House patient outside of Sudbury, the position of it being in where the proposed is by the bus station means that myself, anybody else as I advance in years and not allowed to drive, I can get a bus into that bus station and walk that short distance to the surgery. So in terms of its location, because there are surgeries outside of the centre of Sudbury, it makes them a lot more appealing for patients to be able to get access to.
Thank you very much indeed, Eric. Any other comments at all from any other panel member? Lovely, thank you. We've got a series of comments now that have been posted. So again, thank you for those. I'm just going to read these out, and if any of the panel would like to come in to respond, that will be really helpful. This one's posted, not a question, a comment. It says, the bus station is moving to stops around the town. So thank you for that particular comment. I don't know whether there's anything at all we wanted to address in relation to that. Another comment, this will cause major hold-ups in Station Road. Traffic will be gridlocked. I think we've answered that particular question, Stuart Clark, unless there's anything you wanted to say in addition to that. I think you have covered that off in a previous question, that it was an ideal location.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the only thing I would sort of add to that is, yeah, I mean, I think the highway network in Sudbury is quite complicated in any case, and I know there's been a lot of time and effort sort of put into, changes to the highway network, certainly by Suffolk County Council. In terms of the building, yeah, I think it's important to point out that, we've produced a travel plan, and whilst a lot of patients will drive to the surgery, we will be encouraging people to use more sustainable modes of transport to access the site, whether it's by foot or via bus services. And as I say, that's part and parcel of why we are sort of located where we are, because we are close to a really good functioning bus service. So we hope that would kind of minimise the impact upon the local road network.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Any other comments from any other panel member at all? No, that's fine. Okay, so these are just additional comments. Again, I invite panel members to come in if you wish. So the comments are: the council does not have to provide a lorry park. That's one comment. Another comment is lorry park isn't needed. Further comment: having multiple buildings for GP surgeries as now is more accessible than a single building. That's an interesting comment there, isn't it? So anybody like to pick up on that? Recognising we have covered some of this in the earlier presentation from Stuart. Stuart, did you want to come back on that one?
All I would say, I mean, obviously I'm a developer, and we specialise in developing surgeries throughout the UK, and I think the sort of general kind of direction of travel in relation to surgeries is more centralised surgeries, so less branch surgeries and bigger facilities, and I think that kind of policy has been in place for quite some time. So so it's kind of just the general direction of travel within the NHS. Thank you, Stuart. Anybody else want to come in at all?
I think just to reiterate the point that with reference to this 3 surgeries under consideration, we have no opportunity to expand those. And secondly, the parking and the access to parking facilities is incredibly difficult at all sites. So this will enhance access and consolidate, into more facilities with better access and better parking.
Can I just add another point actually on that? So I think it's fair to say that it's incredibly difficult for a GP practice to operate across several sites. And I think in terms of the Hardwicke House situation, they have a really big catchment area. And, as a kind of, not so much a business model, but as a sort of modern practice, I think, the ideal scenario would be to streamline that and make the sort of general operation of the practice a little bit more efficient. So, again, that's and also consolidating into single premises. Actually, it's a really good way of collaboration between clinicians and different services. And I think everybody would have seen in the news sort of more sort of joined up working between health and social care providers, and I think this is actually quite a common thing. So so just really wanted to just mention that.
Patients get
okay. Thank you ever so much indeed, Stuart. Sorry, Jamie.
Some people find it very confusing. Frequently I'll turn up at the wrong surgery for work. Most days there's a message about a patient on my list who's turned up to a different surgery. It sometimes isn't obvious, and it is confusing from a practical point of view. You can almost find yourself as the lone clinician in some of our buildings sometimes, which isn't really a safe way of trying to practice modern healthcare. It's not safe for the patients, it's not safe for yourself. I feel I've enjoyed working across the different sites, but I feel that healthcare is changing and you really need to consolidate and be in a functional team and provide better services, which we just can't at the moment. And we are hamstrung by having to pay maintenance and repair on 5 different buildings, one of which is a wooden frame building pushing 400 or 500 years old, and that's costs burdened by the practice. That's money that would otherwise be available for our services. So it really hasn't been easy running it across 5 sites at all. And when we start to talk to potential new team members coming in, doctors, nurses, whoever, they're all so surprised at the setup we have. Such a big practice to be spread across 5 fairly small sites. And potentially it's a reason that people wouldn't join, because it just isn't a sensible way of running a service anymore. And
okay.
I guess as quaint as some of the buildings are, and we realise that if it's your local practice, you might have grown up beside it and you are fond of it. But the buildings presently aren't really fit or safe for practice, and certainly in the last 18 months, not one of them has been easy to run a safe COVID service out of and protect people as they come through the building, protect staff, protect us, protect patients, separate people. It's nigh on impossible. And whilst this project's been going for a lot longer than 18 months, the last 18 months has really hammered home the importance of trying to modernise services. And there's no great self-interest in this from the current partners. We're committing the rest of our careers towards Sudbury to give you a better service, and I'm pretty sure we will do.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Jamie. That's a comprehensive answer there. We are close to running out of time here, so I'm just going to go through the remaining comments that we've received and the odd question as well very quickly, and perhaps I'd invite the panel members to give brief answers if that will be okay. So the next comment is that this will affect the view, street scene, the Valley Walk and meadows to tourists. I think we have covered that particular issue off a bit earlier on in the presentation, but again, anything anybody would like to raise or respond to briefly in relation to that particular issue at all? Okay, there's a comment here. I'm so pleased that we are getting a decent surgery. Well, that's a positive comment. Do remember though, this is a proposal that we're putting to you this evening, so you know, we're still wanting to hear from everyone in relation to this. I'm a Hardwicke House patient for my doctors, and I do not have a problem with the current facilities. Is the response that we've had there that's coming in. Another one is Bellevue is still the right location. A further comment, yes, Baber were no doubt helpful because they wanted a hotel in Sudbury there, which is an interesting comment. Anything about that at all, about a hotel in Sudbury? Okay, would rather have a lorry park turned into an additional car park due to new roundabout that will remove parking spaces in front of the leisure centre. Thank you for your comment on that. Hamilton Road is being developed. Suffolk County Council will deal with traffic flow. That's another comment there. Yes, the new facilities are fantastic, but in the wrong location is another comment. Anybody want to come in on that at all?
As we said,
okay.
we spent years looking at locations, and we have what we have got now, and it's not been through want of looking at other places. Okay,
thank you, Jamie. And the last comment, stroke question that we've received, and thank you for this one as well. The current health centre does not provide additional services. Most rooms are leased out for paperwork, used not for clinical direct needs. How is this proposed building going to be any different? Who can we pass that one to? Stuart Clark.
Yeah, so I think it's important. So the structure here is going to be slightly different. So the other health centre is actually leased to NHS England and not directly to a practice. There's also a hospital trust present at that site. I think the difference with this particular building is that the building is going to be leased directly to the practice, and essentially, you know, they will have capacity to accommodate, house and host other services, and we'd absolutely welcome that. So I think that's probably, you know, a sufficient response to address that point.
Thank you very much indeed, Stuart. Anybody else want to come in at all? No, that's lovely. Well, that concludes this evening's live engagement event, the first of two that we're running throughout this engagement exercise. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening. Thank you to our panel members, Dr. Jamie Gilmore, Stuart Fountain, Eric Catton, Stuart Clark. Thanks also to Sarah Colley and Jared Gustafson, who've been on the controls this evening. We are holding our next engagement event on the 21st of October. That's a Thursday at 5 o'clock. If you do want to take part and give your thoughts about the proposal that you've heard this evening, please visit the Hardwicke House website, and also there's a link from the West Suffolk CCG's website to that information as well. There's an online survey there for you to complete. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the 21st of October. Bye for now. Thank you.